Welcome to the town board meeting for Tuesday, July 9th, 2019. Please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, justice for all.
Councilmember Meyer,
Present.
Councilmember Shaw,
Present.
Councilmember Wiltshire,
Present.
Councilmember Feldman,
Present.
Supervisor Levenberg.
Here I am. Okay, so we're going to start this evening with reopening 4 public hearings, the first 3 of which pertain to the 3 referenda the town board is considering putting on the ballot for the November election, which will ask Ossining voters to contemplate changing the elected offices of Superintendent of Highways, Receiver of Taxes, and Town Clerk to appointive offices. As a reminder, we opened these public hearings in February and plan to leave them open until sometime in August so that we will have sufficient time, presuming that they all pass, to get the 3 referenda on the ballot. We continue to welcome your feedback on these ideas. Is there anybody here to address the board on the 3 referenda to eliminate to put up for a vote to the voters the elimination of elected offices in exchange for appointive offices of Superintendent of Highways, Receiver of Taxes, or Town Clerk? Is there anybody here? Just the board. Subject. Going once, going twice. Council Adana.
As you mentioned, Supervisor, under state law, if the board were so inclined to adopt a local law, you would have to do so more than 60 days before the November election in order to be in compliance with general municipal law. And municipal home rule law. So in order to give as many opportunities for the public to weigh in before that time, which will come in August, if the board was so inclined, you could make a motion to adjourn the public hearings and continue them at your next legislative session on July 23rd.
Okay, may I have a motion to do so?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, so we shall adjourn till our next legislative session, which is July 23rd. We'll be back here at the courthouse. If anybody was not able to make this meeting and wants to comment, of course, you can also always send us correspondence via email, snail mail, or call us at the office as well. But better to put your thoughts in writing so that we can add them to the record. Okay, next up, we are reopening the public hearing on the draft local law governing the Cedar Lane Dog Park, the Ryder Park Dog Run, and the licensing of Ossining dogs. We've worked with multiple town and village department heads, as well as the Recreation Advisory Board, to develop the ideas that have led to the draft local law. We have and will continue to solicit input from affected groups, as well as the general public, on the ideas we've gathered and on the law we are crafting. And we plan to keep this open for a little while longer as well. Is there anybody here who's come to address the board on the draft local law regarding dog parks? Please come up and introduce yourself and let us know your thoughts. Right over in the middle.
State your name and address. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sharon Brunner, and my home address is 114 Cedar Lane in Ossining. My husband and I have been using the dog park for like 15 years. It is the greatest thing. It was one of the top dog parks in the entire country, literally. And we applaud the town board for really taking a step forward and really trying to work with us on this. Our big concern, unfortunately, is it's great with the tag system. We have tags on our dog, and most of the people that are there regularly do. But our big concern are all of the out-of-town people that come, especially on weekends. They're in the neighborhood. Oh, there's a dog park. Let's go to the dog park. It's a great advertisement for Ossining, but there's no control. These people are there. They don't know the rules. They don't know the regulations. They come, they do what they want. How is this going to be enforced? And how is the tag issue going to be enforced? Thank you.
So I know that that's a question, and I appreciate that that's a question. And usually at public hearings, we don't answer questions. So let's just see if there's anybody else here to address the board on the dog park local law. And if not, I will take, you want to take a stab at this? Otherwise, I'm happy to talk a little bit about a little bit of feedback that we've already received and some thoughts that we have about amending the draft local law to address some of the concerns that we received from the town clerk, who's also been getting feedback from the public.
Oh, well, if you have feedback that I don't know about, I suppose you should talk.
So we have received a little feedback yesterday morning, I think it was, from our town clerk, and we did solicit from, multiple additional departments, and some of the feedback was about administration, and is it going to be more complicated having this one date that everybody would have to adhere to? We're talking about if we want to shift it a little bit maybe and give people 2 months to get their licenses or their dog licenses in order. And we also talked about what it means to add on for people who don't use the dog park. I think where we landed was similar to multiple benefits that we all receive. We don't always use, but we receive them. We're assessed as property taxes for many of these things. But then we also have fees for other types of uses like the community center and things of that nature. We're considering just adjusting the fees overall for licenses. So anybody who's getting a dog license is now going to just get a slightly adjusted fee for everybody, whether you're going to be able to use a dog park or not, and a benefit, right? So you get the fee and the benefit. Everybody in the town village of Ossining will be able to utilize the dog parks. So with your license, you're now going to also get a tag that lets you in the dog parks and the dog run. And it shows that you're a resident and you have your dog licensed. You're going to have 2 separate tags, right? Your license tag and then a color tag that would indicate which year you got your benefit, let's just call it that, right, of being able to use either dog park or dog run as part of getting your dog licensed in the town village of Ossining. We believe that this is going to help with administration of the dog licenses. It's going to help make it easier to enforce because of the colored tags. And as far as the answer to the question of how will we enforce it, when we have a law in the books, obviously it then means our police can enforce it. Are we going to have our police force standing at the dog park regularly? We are not. However, as with many quality of life types of issues and how they get enforced, most of the way that they're going to be enforced is going to be by the neighbors and friends and people who are at the dog park who have done what they're supposed to do, have gotten their dog licensed, are using the parks, and then are going, yes, the burden is going to be somewhat on community upset to say, hey, excuse me, you have to have your dog licensed, or you have to go and get a tag and pay a non-resident fee to use the dog park.
Well,
That's what I believe currently as we've proposed it. But if there's other thoughts and ideas, then we are
so
open to
adding
them.
on to that,
Adding on to that.
once in a while, we expect the police will go up there
Yes.
and do a sweep
Yes,
and check.
absolutely.
And the penalty is onerous. It's $250. So, the first round of unfortunate souls who get that penalty will be displeased and probably share that with anybody else who walks in the door and doesn't have a color. Like, hey, guess what happened to me? Like, this is what happened to me. You probably don't want this. You should probably go down and get a license, because at any minute, we don't know when, somebody conceivably could show up and you could get a ticket. So it's the amount of the fine, which is significant. We think that will encourage people to actually go get it. Right. And then it's not,
There's a
oh,
little
you don't have your
sting.
license, you need a
Yeah.
license. It's more of a, oh, wow, you should watch out because this could happen to you. So it's more of an information to a new person who's there and less of a, hey, you better do this. So, it's more of a helpful hint to tell somebody as opposed to a.
And honestly, those types of enforcement you know, stings, sting operations or whatever we can call it.
Really?
At the dog, sting at the dog park. Anyway, tend to be very effective. That's what we've certainly heard from law enforcement. We believe that those tend to be effective. So if we have other ideas, again, we are open to ideas. We think that, you know, by pairing the onerous fine with these other measures and making it, you know, easier and just as a reminder, you can now apply for your dog license online and you would be able to continue to do so, and then your tags would be mailed to you. So that's already in place. If once the local law is in place, and we would pair it again with the extra tag that you would get, the colored annual tag. Yes.
So I was just going to mention also, and I'm not sure if you mentioned this because we were talking about this just earlier today. So if it would be like for 2019, the color tag is red, so it'll be pretty easy to see from a distance. And even our park staff, when they're up there, pardon me? Okay, so under this new program, right, we would assign a color per year, and so you would get a different color for every year so that people could see from a long distance away if you were, you know, registered sort of like on your car's registration, right? It's very easy to see if you're up to date or not.
It's
So
a different tag than your dog tag. So you'd have two
you have
tags.
two tags.
Two tags.
So when our park staff are up there, they can, I mean, they can even enforce it to a degree as well. They can say, oh man, you've got a blue tag. You know, you forgot to go to the clerk's office and get your new tag. So, I mean, that's what we're hoping will ease administration a little bit too.
Right. No, I mean, honestly, we don't have a local law in place right now. We have rules and regulations that aren't
Codified.
codified. That was a word. Thank you. Codified. So that's why we're working on this. We're trying to put something in place, codified and then enforceable.
To your other question, have we worked out how out-of-town people will be able to get their license?
You have to go to the clerk's office.
Right,
get
so
your
there
non-resident,
will be signage.
Permit.
You know, there will be new signage specifically stating, and you know,
Right.
when the people come from out of town, they're taking the risk of getting the fine. You know, and of course, you know, weekends, we'll see. You know, but you know, they are taking a risk at that point.
All right.
Anybody else want to?
Is there anybody else here to talk about the dog park local law draft? Or if you need to come up to the microphone right there, introduce yourself with your name and your address, please, and then you can give us your comments.
Are you Jeff Miller, 40 Bellevue Avenue? I, for lack of a better term, the ex-president of the dog park. And I just want to say a couple of things that, like, first off, we had all this stuff worked out. And it was when the town, I know this was before your time, but when the town got involved, that's when the wheels came off of the dog park. That dog park ran just fine all on its own. I know we can't go back to those days. I'm just saying, all this stuff with the color tags and stuff, that was my idea. For the same thing with the car inspections. I'm the one that brought that to the table. We had that in place. We had it working. The town dropped the ball on that. Chris Soy, and that when he left, that vacancy was never filled. And that's when the dog park, which was already on its way falling apart, fell the rest of the way through. So that's all I want to say. I'm sorry that I missed it. I thought it was going off at 7:30. I tried to get here. I wish I had been here for the earlier part to hear what your ideas are. I don't really go to the dog park that much anymore now. My dogs are older. I just want to say it is a fantastic asset to the community. And I think that what's happening up there is a sin because it was rated in one of the top 10 dog parks in the United States of America. And now I go up there and it reminds me of the cartoon, the old commercial with the Indian looking at the litter and the tear running down his eye. That's how I feel when I go up there. It breaks my heart. I can't even go up there now. So I don't know what you guys are going to do, but you got to keep that in mind that the people who use that, it's a different breed up there now. I don't know if I understand the enforcement. I've heard the promises from the town all about the enforcement. We had it going. We had it so that the members that were there and used the park every day enforced it amongst ourselves. We didn't need the cops. We didn't need that. We had the membership. We had the voice of the people working it. And the town came in and through their actions removed the power from us to do that. Now you're trying to get it going back again. I can appreciate it. You got a long road to go. You got uphill climb because, like I say, it's a different breed of people up there now. The people that you had on board that were willing and gave many, many hours voluntarily to keep that place going don't have it in them anymore because we've seen the carpet ripped out from under our feet too many times. So, like I say, I've read through the bylaws and stuff. Whatever you're going to do, I don't know if you're going to give people warnings, if you're going to go up there and just start saying, well, your first time you're getting caught up here without a tag, you're going to get a $250 fine. Sure, that's going to work to keep the people without tags out of the park, but you're going to keep everybody out of the park. It's supposed to be a community asset. You're supposed to bring people in and get them to come in and want to come back and become part of the program, not with a hammer, but with a jar of honey. Okay? And that's all I'm going to say. Like I say, I'm sorry I missed the beginning of the meeting. I appreciate all your efforts to keep the park going. Like I say, it's a fantastic community asset that I think serves a very good purpose, and I think it would be a real shame to see it go away at the wayside. So
Thank you.
that's all I got to say.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys.
Ask me.
I
I just want to give you an opportunity if you did.
No, I agree. You know, I was there during the time when the dog park board was running it, and you know, we don't need to go through everything that happened. Hopefully, as we get it together, and we get this going, then perhaps a new board will form. I think that if we're having everybody automatically registered for the dog park, I know we had some discussion about
Just
having an associate, you know, the dog friends of the ODP also be an entity that people could join as a volunteer organization, and the people that were in the friends of the ODP would have to elect a board, and they would be the ones who would decide what improvements would be, or, you know, would be in on the conversation of what improvements were made to the park, and not just the people who took ownership and who really wanted to be involved and support the park with their time and their volunteerism would be the ones who would be able to help make the decisions on what improvements the park needed. And I think maybe that's a way that we can get a Friends of ODP group back together. You know, I'm not really sure how else, but in my dreams it forms again, and life is good.
And again, as Mr. Miller mentioned, I wasn't here when the group sort of dissolved. I've heard some stories as to why that happened, and maybe it was related to what happened in the town, and maybe it was related to other things. And I'm not saying we want to hear the stories now, but I'm just saying we're not going to get into the whole stories of it. But I will say that we absolutely agree that the dog park is a community asset. And as we mentioned earlier, what we're going to do is offer as a public benefit to town and village residents who have their dogs licensed. They are going to get a tag every year to utilize the dog park, and hopefully that will incentivize people to use it more and to use it responsibly. And again, it's going to be mostly community enforcement. Or every once in a while, we'll send some police enforcement around if we hear stories that that there are people abusing the dog park and not utilizing it correctly. And then we're going to, as Councilwoman Feldman mentioned, we are going to encourage the rebirth of the Friends of the Dog Park. Okay. Is there anybody else here to address the board on the proposed local law for the dog parks? Once, going twice. Okay, so we are going to adjourn this public hearing to July 23rd, I believe. Is that right? Okay, our next legislative session. Do I have a motion?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
So
All
July
right.
23rd is our next opportunity to be heard.
July 23rd will
Okay.
be the next opportunity. Okay. And we are continuing. We also had sent it out to stakeholder groups, as I mentioned earlier. I know, we definitely would love to get anything in writing that anybody has specific to the local law, where they think that it can be improved. We are already getting feedback and taking that into account. So we will probably have an amended version before the next public hearing. That'll be good idea. We'll post the
Thank you.
suggestions up there. Okay. Say it again?
Both.
At both. Yes, at both. At both. All right. So next up we have announcements. So before we discuss some of the event highlights coming up this weekend next, I wanted to mention that I participated in a packed press conference yesterday with the county executive, town and village officials and professionals, state and county legislators, and others who are all focused on the state's approval and the governor signing into law the county sales tax increase. I know it's not often that so many of us would get together on the topic of tax increases, but I will say that there was bipartisan support of the increase. As we all know, it will help to maintain fiscal stability for the county. The county was not in great shape as far as their Moody's bond rating, but they're hoping that it's going to go up, which will then actually reduce the cost of borrowing. It'll help schools and municipalities because this money would be distributed to all of these taxing entities and will help us have to rely less on property tax increases and also support local schools and local services. The town of Ossining stands to see an estimated $133,000 in fiscal year 2019 and about $289,000 estimated for 2020. We hope to use this money to offset infrastructure improvements that would otherwise have to wait or we would have to borrow to achieve. So thank you to all who worked hard to bring this common sense legislation to fruition. Tomorrow, now into announcements for upcoming events, we have Ossining Police Department is hosting their first of 4 block parties this summer in collaboration with the school district, and this one is going to take place on James Street. If you have other plans on Wednesdays, on this Wednesday, no worries. Other dates are Wednesday, July 24th on Yale Avenue, Wednesday, August 7th on Croton Avenue, and Wednesday, August 21st on Dale Avenue. All block parties begin at 5 p.m. and wrap up around 7 p.m. Be sure to bring the youngsters out and enjoy a fun night, courtesy of OPD and OUFSD. Mind, Body, Spirit Ossining is also going to be represented at the block parties. One of our favorites, Sue Radvar of Studio 95 Zumba, will be doing a demo at each block party that will be fun for parents and kids. Sue's hosting classes every other Saturday at Lewis Engle Park for all ages, so be sure to check out her expertise at the block parties and then join in the fun at the park throughout the summer. Then, starting this Thursday, July 11th, the Briarcliff Manor Chamber of Commerce will be starting their summer concert series at Law Park, which will take place on 4 consecutive Thursdays. Come down for some live music and grab some dinner and drinks. 10510 and Mission Taqueria will be on site to sell you some yummy snacks and icy drinks to round out the evening. This week, the band High Five will take the stage at 7 p.m. in Briarcliff. You have another opportunity to get out Thursday night for more music. The next installment of Ferry Sloop's 2019 Summer Music Series will feature singer-songwriter Greg Connors at Chattahoochee Yacht Club at 7:30 p.m. Greg's vocals and guitar will be coupled with special guest Lisa Dodakian on violin. Visit ferrysloops.org for more information. Friday, July 12th, will feature our second Food Truck Friday and 2019 Summer Concert Series at the waterfront. Ossining's own Soul Project with a special guest singer, whose name I don't remember, will be performing at the Lewis Engle Park stage beginning at 7 p.m., but no need to wait. The food trucks will start slinging at 5 p.m. This week, come down for Westchester Burger Company, Layla's Crepe Station, the EMB Rice Ball Truck, and Ahi Limo and Sing Sing Kill Brewery. It's going to be a great night along the Hudson River, and we can't wait to see you there. We also have some awesome Mind, Body, Spirit Ossining programs coming up this week, starting with Recess Rocks on Friday, July 12th at 3:30 p.m. at Nelson Park. That one's strictly for the kiddos. Then on Saturday, July 13th, you have 3 choices. Join Sharky instructor Solara Delphi for a belly dancing workout on a Lewis Engle Park stage at 9 a.m. Learn Taekwondo with Master Kenyon Winfield of UMAC Briarcliff at the Rioter Park Pavilion at 10 a.m. And then head back down to Engle Park for Studio 95 Zumba with Sue at 4 p.m. Register in advance to qualify for raffles and giveaways from participating businesses. Visit the Village of Ossining's rec page and look for MBSO events coming up. Then on Saturday, July 13th, the Ossining Historic Cemeteries Conservancy will hold another gravestone cleaning, this week at Historic Sparta Cemetery between 9 a.m. and noon. Wear clothes you don't mind getting a little grubby and no experience is required, just some elbow grease, as I always say. The folks from OHCC will teach you everything you need to know to restore some of Ossinings's history to its former glory. On Monday the 15th, more live music. The Ronnie Ben-Hur Quartet will be at Henry Gordine, or maybe it's Ronnie Ben-Hur, I'm not sure, will be at Henry Gordine Park for a night of jazz down at the waterfront. Head down at 6:30 p.m. and enjoy some tunes on the Hudson. Not a bad way to start the week. Planning any international travel this summer and in need of a passport, Westchester County has you covered. Tim Idoni, County Clerk, and his staff will be visiting Ossining on Tuesday, July 16th. Head down to the community center between 11 a.m. and 2 p.m. to get your application ready and even take your passport photo. If you have any questions, you can contact the county clerk's office at 995-3082. Also next Tuesday, Westchester County will be holding a job fair at Eastview Middle School targeting school jobs. That's at 350 Main Street in White Plains between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. School jobs are not just for teachers. They're looking for folks who are looking for clerical work, custodial jobs, and more. This event is open to the public. Call 995-2501 for more information. And a new run of 10-minute plays is coming to Westchester Collaborative Theater starting on Friday, July 19th, called Brand New Shorts. Make sure to get your tickets in advance by visiting wctheater.org. This program only runs through July 28th, so make sure not to miss it. Finally, please be advised that work is ongoing at the Pacantico River Bridge in Briarcliff Manor. There continue to be delays and closures on Pleasantville Road due to this work, including a full road closure in the wee hours of the night because that's when a lot of the work is being done. Please try to reroute to the extent possible or check with the Village of Briarcliff Manor for specifics on night work, land and road closures, and expected delays. Any other announcements? My colleague. At all? No. All right, fantastic. So next up we have liaison reports. Our liaisons. Reminds me that we have to reassign Greg. We have to assign, not reassign, we have to reassign Karen's liaison to Councilman. Oh, sure. Absolutely. I will go back to that. That's Tuesday, July 16th, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. for the county clerk visiting the community center in Ossining to help out with passports. We have no departmental reports this evening. And now I ask, is there public comment on any of the agenda items for this evening? Is there anybody here to talk about any of our agenda items? Going once, going twice, hearing none. We can move right into our board resolutions.
Okay. Approval of minutes, regular meeting, June 25th, 2019. Resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Ossining hereby approves the June 25th, 2019 minutes of the regular meeting as presented.
Do I have a motion?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Okay. Approval of minutes, special meeting, July 2nd, 2019. Resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Ossining hereby approves the July 2nd, 2019 minutes of the special meeting as presented.
A motion?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Abstain.
And one abstention. Thank you. Councilwoman Feldman.
Okay. Approval voucher detail report. Resolved that the Town Board of the Town of Ossining hereby approves the voucher detail report dated July 9th, 2019 in the amount of $447,480.66.
Do I have a motion?
Second.
Discussion? Questions? Really?
There was a lot for the upgrade of our bathrooms, I see. So has that all been installed?
Not yet all installed. Some installed, but
Yeah.
not all, they're not all installed yet.
There's going to be a variety of invoices coming for various plumbing supplies that they ordered from a purchasing group that we recently joined, Keystone Purchasing Network. So it's on a competitive bid. So they're kind of coming in cycles.
Oh, they're coming in cycles. Okay,
Yes,
so there'll
you'll
be
see
more.
more. There'll be more.
So, I mean, looking forward to all the new fixtures
Mhm.
and clean, updated bathrooms. Assuming we're using low flow items and things.
We are.
Sort.
All
Good.
sorts of things.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
We saw
Bathrooms
some
aren't
of it
cheap.
when we did the parks tour for the rec advisory board, and it's looking
Right
good.
or
Yeah, it's looking good.
done. Gerlach
Was halfway
is
there.
halfway done. and there's more coming. We're on the
Okay.
way. Okay.
That-
All those
Money
in
well
favor?
spent.
Aye. Opposed?
Okay. Order calling public hearing in the matter of the increase and improvement of facilities of Consolidated Sewer District in the town of Ossining, Westchester County, New York. Whereas the Town Board of the Town of Ossining, Westchester County, New York, has under consideration an increase and improvement of the facilities of Consolidated Sewer District in the Town of Ossining, Westchester County, New York, consisting of the purchase of generators for lift stations, including costs incidental thereto, at a maximum estimated cost of $100,000. And whereas it is now desired to call a public hearing on the question of the increase and improvement of the facilities of the sewer district in the matter described above, and to hear all persons interested in the subject thereof concerning the same in accordance with the provisions of section 202-B of the town law. Now therefore it is hereby ordered by the Town Board of the Town of Ossining, Westchester County, New York, as follows. Section 1. A public hearing will be held at 8688 Spring Street in Ossining, New York, in said town on July 23rd, 2019 at 7:30 p.m. Prevailing time on the question of the increase and improvement of the facilities of the Consolidated Sewer District in the town of Ossining, Westchester County, New York, in the manner described in the preambles hereof, and to hear all persons interested in the subject thereof concerning the same, and to take such action thereon as is requested or authorized by law. Section 2. The town clerk is hereby authorized and directed to cause a copy of the notice of public hearing hereinafter provided to be published once the official newspaper of the town, and also cause a copy thereof to be posted on the signboard of the town, such publication and posting to be made not less than 10 nor more than 20 days before the date designated for the hearing.
Do I have a motion?
Second.
So if you've been following along at home, you know that we are working on a lot of projects all at once. One that has been fast-tracked for this year is to replace the generators at our sewer pump stations. In case of a power outage, service is not interrupted and the sewage pits won't overflow if we have working generators. Unfortunately, many of our generators have seen better days. Several were purchased with the original lift station, many of which are over 20 years old at least, and the time has come to trade them in. We're planning to issue a bond for this purchase, and as our sewer district is a special district, this borrowing is subject to a permissive referendum. We will open the public hearing in 2 weeks right here in our courthouse. Is there any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed?
A resolution approving memorandum of understanding to extend intermunicipal agreement with the Village of Ossining to supply water to the unincorporated town. Whereas the town of Ossining and the Village of Ossining entered into an agreement effective January 1st, 2002 for the village to supply the unincorporated area of the town with water, the term of which agreement was 15 years, 2002 agreement. And whereas upon the 2002 agreement expiring, the village and town have entered into extensions of the agreement subject to the same terms as the 2002 agreement, the most recent extension of which expired on June 30th, 2019. And whereas the town desires to further extend the 2002 agreement until August 31st, 2019, while the parties negotiate a new agreement, and now therefore be it resolved, the town board hereby approves a memorandum of understanding to extend the 2002 agreement between the village and the town for water supply pursuant to the same terms in the 2002 agreement until August 31st, 2019, and authorizes the supervisor to execute a memorandum of understanding on behalf of the town, subject to approval by council to the town as to form.
Do I have a motion?
Second.
So it was brought to our attention by our partners in the Village of Ossining that our IMA for water services to the unincorporated town expired at the end of June. We are approving a short extension to the current agreement to buy us a few weeks to look at the agreement more holistically for the coming year. Any questions?
Are we planning to do another long-term agreement like 15?
And will we be able to do that by August 1st?
I'm
31st.
quite
Thank
sure
you.
that we are going to be extending that date because it's ambitious. I believe that the reason that the village is interested in adjusting the terms of the agreement has to do with a grant or grants that they're applying for, and the way that the wording is structured may inhibit their ability to receive such grants unless we address that. So as we address that, we will also discuss other issues. One of the issues that has come up repeatedly over years is the additional fee that unincorporated residents pay. And we will continue to lobby for a change to this, but that doesn't necessarily mean we will be able to achieve that. Even though unincorporated residents pay 1.5 times what village residents pay for water, that isn't actually a lot for out-of-towners to pay, like as an additional fee to out-of-towners. It's complicated, right? Because unincorporated aren't part of the village, so that's why it's complicated. But I worked very, very, very hard on trying to get a change to this in my first year as supervisor. There were a number of obstacles that we were up against, and we will continue to do so as we speak with the village to find solutions to our general challenges. With that, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay.
Okay. Resolution approving Lewis Angle Park stage application for LNAO revised date. Whereas at the town board's May 28th, 2019 meeting, the town board adopted a resolution approving the application by the organization LNAO, Losing Not an Option, to hold a music festival consisting of several artists on July 27th, 2019, which resolution is attached hereto and incorporated herein. And whereas the applicant subsequently amended the application to change the date of the festival to July 20th, 2019, and now therefore be it resolved that the town board hereby amends the May 28th, 2019 resolution solely to the extent of changing the date of the festival from July 27th, 2019 to July 20th, 2019, and hereby reaffirms the remainder of the resolution as stated therein.
Do I have a motion?
Moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay. No correspondence to be received and filed, so
None.
we have monthly reports. Resolved that the town board of the town of Austining hereby accepts the following monthly reports for the month of June 2019. Town clerk's office, town supervisor's office, town tax receiver's office, town building department, and GE helicopter report.
Do I have a motion? Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, and finally, before we adjourn into our work session topics, we have an opportunity for visitor recognition on any subject whatsoever. You're here to address the board. Now's your moment on anything you want to talk to us about. Anybody? Just please introduce yourself, sir.
Aaron Moore, and I live at 75 Spring Valley Road.
Okay.
I actually came in about the dates on the first page, the first items here. What is it? The highways, superintendent of highways, and appointed positions or what have you. I really wanted to get more information. Basically, that's why I didn't say anything. I guess I could get it online or whatever.
Sure.
I mean, I didn't realize you guys was doing this since February or March or January or whatever.
Yeah. There is a website. It's called projectforwardtoo.com. You can also get there if you go to townofaustining.com, and right at the top it says Project Forward. If you want to go to Project Forward, there's a whole bunch of information. There's an FAQ, which is, frequently asked questions page that talks a lot about, pros and cons, why the board is even suggesting that this is something to put up for a vote.
That's really what I needed to see.
Yeah, so there's that information. Thank you for writing that out. So if you want to get more information, and then if you have additional questions or concerns and you want to email us, please feel free, or call, whatever would be the most helpful.
Thank you.
And the public hearing will continue
Right.
to be open.
On the 23rd.
Correct. Yeah. So if you have comments and you want to I will just say that, we've received a lot of comments, people for or against. I don't know that I've heard anything suggesting that we shouldn't put it to a vote to the people. Ultimately, this is going to be a vote. If the board adopts this local law, it still has to go to the voters to approve. The superintendent of highways would be voted on only by unincorporated residents, and then the other two positions would be town general. So anybody in the village of Austining, unincorporated town of Austining, or the,
Portion of Briar.
right, the village of Briarcliff, the portion that's in the town of Austining. Now, you did mention Spring Valley Road. which
Town of
sounds
Austining.
To me. Okay,
Oh,
okay.
oh,
okay,
wait a
just-
minute.
Okay,
Part
so
of that.
Maybe I'm not
unincorporated
the town
town of
Austining.
Austining. Okay. Okay.
It's weird where I live. I believe I'm in the town of
Newcastle.
Newcastle.
Newcastle,
Yes, I
but I
think
have
you're
an
in-
Austining posting.
Right. Right. Which is,
I live with Jerry. Same place.
that's Newcastle?
Newcastle.
Newcastle. I have a feeling it's town of Newcastle.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure, but if you were in the town of Newcastle, unfortunately, you don't get to vote on that.
That's quite all right. I
Okay?
still
But
need
you
to
can
find out
certainly
about
still gather information.
that. I would like to know who's going to be doing the appointing.
So the town board would have, right, just so
The
you
board.
know, the town board
Will make
or
the
whoever
appointment.
populates this, I mean, the town board, the body of
Yes.
the town board, the elected representatives of the people would appoint. Currently, we have an appointed highway superintendent. Not sure if you're aware, but Pete Connolly, who actually served as an appointed village water department employee for many years. I think was he the water superintendent? No, foreman, right? Water foreman. And then he served the town in the position as our superintendent of Dale Cemetery. And currently he is serving as our appointed superintendent of town highway. Michael G. O'Connor retired from that position earlier this year. So currently he's in that position, and I have to say, doing a really nice job.
Thank
So
you.
that's all I'll say.
Also, I just
Fantastic
want to
job.
point out, if you do live in Newcastle, all three of these positions are appointed where you live.
Oh,
in the
thank you for that
municipality where
reminder.
you live.
Yes.
I don't think I understood what you.
In Newcastle,
In
the
Newcastle.
town of Newcastle, the tax receiver, the clerk are all appointed. Yes.
Okay.
Sorry. Darren Brown, 114 Cedar Lane. Okay, on any subject, big concern, especially with the dog park people, is what's going on with Sunshine House or St. Mary's or whatever it's called now. And the blasting that's going to be taking place, which is going to totally disrupt things. In addition to this whole water issue, where does the town stand on that? Are we able to get any help from guys on that? I mean, this is just out of control already.
Okay, so in terms of control, the town of Newcastle is actually in control of this project. We have advocated along the way throughout the process of the review by the planning board and zoning board for, we advocated for an environmental impact study. The planning board decided that they had enough information, in the town of Newcastle planning board decided that they had enough information without doing that. They believed that the applicant had basically satisfied all of the requirements without doing an EIS, and they approved the project. There have been some Article 78 brought proceedings that were brought against the development, against the town of Newcastle, and so far have not been successful. I don't know that they're all done yet, but as far as blasting, if you received a pre-blasting survey notice, if you're in, that would mean that you would have been in 500 feet of where the blasting would take place.
I know people that live within the 500 feet, and they have not either.
That is. Okay, so in any case, if you are within 500 feet of the blasting, and you received a notice, then you would have an opportunity to have a pre-blasting survey, and I certainly suggest that you take advantage of that. We did, as a town, requested that the blasting company come in and do the survey so that we have evidence in advance if there's any changes that result from as a result of the blasting. There's also an opportunity for the town, our engineer, as well as our building department, to meet with the blasting company and the consultant. We're going to continue to discuss if there's other additional steps that we want to take to make sure that the town is protected and that our residents are protected to the best extent that we possibly can. I don't think we're going to stop the blasting. We're not, that's not going to happen, but we're going to do whatever we can to make sure that all protections are in place
I
so that it
understand.
has the
My
least
concern,
impact.
again, is with the dog park.
Yes.
I don't live 500 feet from the blasting zone. I'm never gonna know what's going on. I'm gonna take my dog up to the dog park, which is right there. I mean,
So the blasting,
backyard.
the blasting, company, I do believe that they will be issuing alerts, and we will make sure that we share as much information as possible through our town, web blasts, or, you know, the email blast. That if you aren't on our email blast and you would like to get onto our email blast, and you can live in the town of Newcastle and still get on our email blast, if you'd like, you just have to let us know what your email is, and we will include you in the supervisor updates that we send out every Friday. Let us know. We're gonna try to include any dates that we have from town of Newcastle, or that we get from the development, from Sunshine Home, or anything else. We're going to do our best to share as much information as we possibly can.
You know what fireworks do to dogs. I don't have to tell you what blasting is gonna do.
Right. So let's just remember that there are fragile children who live there, and the people who are expanding Sunshine Home have a belief that they are going to protect those children throughout the process. And we know that dogs are sensitive, but so are people, and they need to make sure that every protection is in place to ensure the safety of children who live there.
Unfortunately, they have a lot more control over what they can do with those children versus those of us that are not going to know what's going on
Are they going to alert
on
us
the
when?
outside.
Yes.
Are we going to have a list of times?
Yes.
So can we post it at the
That's what I
dog
said.
park?
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah, you didn't
We
say
can
we were
post
gonna
it.
post it.
Well, we
No,
can post it.
put
Sure.
it onto the dog park
put it on the-
communication Facebook
Absolutely.
group.
Yeah, that
And
would
we
be
can
great.
post it physically at the dog park, any information that we do get.
Yes.
That'll definitely help, yeah.
I just wanted to bring one point. When the supervisor said gonna send around house.
You can request a pre-blasting survey if you're within the 500 feet of where the blasting.
In case you don't know what's meant by that. Blasting sometimes cracks foundations, fillings, it to the things out.
And that's why
Like I
you
said,
would-
I don't live within the 500
Right.
feet, so that's not as much.
That's not
of a
as much your
concern.
concern as the dogs at the dog park.
I live on the other side of 9A, so I'm far enough away as far as the blasting aspect of it. I mean, we lived through the blasting when they were doing it down at GE,
Right.
but it's more the idea of vicinity as close to the dog park as it is, and the use of the dog
Correct.
park
Right.
and the people, because it's not just the dogs, it's the people there too.
Sure.
You know, we've got
Absolutely.
ears.
And you said that some of the neighbors you didn't think got it. I think they should reach out to Newcastle and the blasting company and request it as soon as possible. They can, if you would tell them that, hey, you want to go reach out to Newcastle and the blasting company and get your pre-blasting survey as soon as possible. If you're aware that they haven't gotten that notification, now's the time to do that.
I appreciate that, because like I said, I didn't even know that existed because I don't live within the 500 feet.
Right. And we haven't gotten the dates yet. I don't know that the blasting application has even been approved yet by the town of Newcastle. It's still with it going through the process. So that my belief would be that at this point they're down, working with the town of Newcastle to make sure that the blasting plan is approved by the town. And once it is, then they would probably schedule the dates for that to happen.
I appreciate all that information. But on another note, again, dealing with that same situation, there's a lot of discussion in the area about how it's going to affect our well water. Our house is well water. It's not part of the village given, water to the town. And there's a lot of concern about the use of that expanded facility drawing from our wells and leaving us bone dry, as it were.
So there are testing mechanisms in a lot of the wells. We've advocated as well as we can to get the testing and the protections in place. Remember, it's Newcastle. So you know, we've advocated as far as we can, but there are measurement devices in some of the wells to see if there is a drop in the water. Our water experts don't think there will be, and I hope that they're right. I know there's that, you know, we've gone as far as we can. We've been discussing it with Newcastle.
I mean, I know this is Newcastle and I know it's their facility and I know they're taking the ball on it and there's a lot of controversy involved with that, which I don't know all the details, so I'm not going to even speculate on. But I'm concerned that I live in the town of Ossining. We border Newcastle and we're so close to them that it does affect us. And I was just,
And I understand that the Department of Health in the county regulates the regulates wells, regulates septic, and water quality. And we've been assured from all of the studies that were looked at by our engineers, planners, and water superintendent that this would not have an impact on the town water. We have to trust our professionals, and we do. There have been the studies that they've had to do, and obviously they've had to put a lot of monitoring in place also, and I believe that they've done so even beyond what the requirements were. Again, they want to make sure that their water is clean for the residents there, and they want to make sure they have to actually put in an entire like a mini filtration facility there, and there's monitors and gauges at all points of the system to see what, again, what the wells are, and as Councilwoman Feldman said, to monitor if they see drops in any of the surrounding wells.
unfortunately, they're not going to see that initially because they don't even have a total forecast of how much they're going to be utilizing.
They do. They have a total forecast. They absolutely have a forecast. So again, I think that the best thing to do for these particular concerns is to take a look. There's hundreds of thousands of pages of documents online. Everything is up there. All of the studies, the water studies, the water quality studies, the what's the quantity of water that is proposed to be used. All of that is online. If you disagree with somebody, if you disagree with any of the studies, you have concerns, really the best place to take that up to is the town of Newcastle. I'm not saying that we can't advocate for it. We've talked to them. We've attended meetings. We attended that water meeting when we found out about the monitoring program that they were doing independently, not the developer, but in fact the town of Newcastle had a monitoring system in place to monitor the wells, and there were certain wells that were in the surrounding area that they were taking a look at. Right. Yes. So again, if this is not something that we're going to be able to solve all of the concerns that have been raised, but we have, to the best possible extent, we believe, continue to advocate for the safety of all those in the town of Ossining.
Thank you.
Alrighty. So with that, if there's nothing else from any of our visitors, I should mention anything about, I'm just seeing Senator Carlucci's representative in the audience, and we had hoped to have a little ribbon cutting today for our spray park, our new spray pad, which we've talked a lot about. And unfortunately, as best as we did to guard and protect the spray pad during our wonderful fireworks that we celebrated on the 3rd of July for Independence Day, we had a couple little spots that were nicked by fireworks that somehow managed to get past our many protections that we put in place. So we plan to do our best, if we can, to repair those before we have our ribbon cutting, at which time, if we're not able to do that before the end of the summer, because we want to keep the spray park open as much as possible during these hot days so all of our children can enjoy it. The park is very safe, continues to be very safe to enjoy. We will get back to everybody to let them know about the new date. With that, I would ask for a motion to adjourn into work session. We have a couple work session topics.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. All right. Okay, so first up, we want to talk about our tree bank fund. As we continue to prioritize healthy communities, we've worked hard to consider the impacts of development on not just our physical health, but also our environmental health. As part of a local law in 2017, we established a tree bank fund for new development, but have not established any fees associated with this provision of the law, and we still need to hammer out the specifics of what would be required of developers who bank. To that end, we have received feedback from our Environmental Advisory Committee. They gave us some direction by way of Wellesley, Massachusetts, town of Wellesley, who has something in place, I think, since 2011, as well as some suggestions from our planner, David Stolman, in terms of a per caliper assessment. This is just the beginning of this conversation, but we hope to put something in place soon, as we have a number of applications pending that will require tree removal or have already required tree removal, and we have not yet assessed a fee for that. So, Council Tomadonna, did you want to add anything before we talk about this a little bit?
I mean, I think you pretty much summed it up. The town board adopted extensive, for those of you who are on the board may recall, in I believe it was 2017, zoning regulations and regulations related to other environmental aspects of the code, and one of them contemplated, it's actually in the tree protection chapter 183, that in connection with subdivision and site plan applications, that the project has to meet the minimum requirement of replacement of 50% of the total aggregate diameter of trees proposed for removal with new trees. However, recognizing that in some circumstances, because of site constraints, that would be impractical or impossible, the tree bank fund, that's to be established by resolution of the town board, is an alternative mitigation measure where replacement is not feasible, in order to give the town the opportunity to have funds in place in order to plant trees in places where that may be possible. And Supervisor, I don't know if you just want to, piggybacking off of that, mention the tree inventory that,
Yes,
that the town has been doing.
I absolutely do. So in addition to the suggestions that we'd received from our planner, David Stolman, and those from the town of Wellesley, Massachusetts, which the EAC shared with us, we also reached out to the company that's currently working with the town on the tree inventory to see if they not only could help us in their final report to the town, the final inventory, to suggest areas in our public right-of-ways where we might want to consider planting trees, which we would be funded through the tree bank fund, but also if they were expert enough to make some suggestions as to what would be reasonable to charge based on a per caliper trees removed versus replacement. We are waiting to get a little bit more feedback. Right now, the suggestion that had come from our planner, David Stolman, was based on how much 8 different nurseries or 6 different trees would cost if they were 2.5 to 3 inch caliper tree, which would be about $430, or a 3 to 3.5 inch caliper tree would be about $555. And taking average of those 2 different size trees, the result would be $495, which would give us for a 3 inch caliper tree, or $165 per caliper inch of replacement tree. So we were given an example of an application that recently, I think it's a 4-lot subdivision. There's already 2 developed lots on it, and then 212 caliper inches of tree replacement would be required for that particular development, which would come to about $34,000 or $35,000 approximately. So that's just something for us to think about, to give us some perspective. That's not very, very large development. Obviously, we know trees have a great value for and removing trees. While we know we have to do it sometimes because we live in the suburbs here, and that's what has to happen when you want to put structures in place. It does have an impact. So, how would we go about planting trees with the money that we have from the tree bank fund, and what is a reasonable amount to charge? The town of Wellesley, which I think you guys have a copy of also, right? Has a different way of doing it, and it's based on also on the size of the tree, but it is depending on the size of the trees that are removed. It can be 150 per inch for smaller trees, and then the larger trees, it goes up to 250 per inch for greater than 20 inches to 75 inches, and 400 per inch thereafter. So for very, very
We're
large
taking down an old growth
for
forest
trees,
is expensive. This works for me.
they're taking it's more expensive. Again, they have a whole chart that kind of gives you a sense of what the contribution would be based on a variety of examples, so you can take a look at that. I wanted to just get some feedback from the board if you think we're in the right place here, if you think this is too high. I will tell you that the gentleman that we spoke to from DV Resources, the company that's doing the tree inventory for us, mentioned that he had worked with the city of Ithaca when he was, I believe, the forester there some years back, and they'd come up with an amount of $100 per caliber inch, and that was just one price across the board that they charged for replacement. They found that sufficed for both purchasing bare root trees, which basically purchase smaller trees, because the thought is that they're more successful at root and being sustained over the long haul. At some point, Ithaca ran out of room for planting, and then I guess they had to figure out what to do alternatively.
Well, what do you plant?
Well, that's part of our tree inventory. We're asking DV Resources to make suggestions as to where we can plant replacement trees. First, it would be best to plant them back on the site if we can. If whoever's taking the trees down can find room to plant some of them back on the site, replace some of the trees. But then if they're not able to do so, then have to test them. And this gentleman who spoke to us said people were more than happy to pay the fee rather than have to deal with planting them themselves and let the city take that responsibility.
Right. Well, with all the invasive species and troubles that, the elms are having, and there's an oak wilt, and there's a lot of other tree challenges coming along, I think that having a healthy bank to replace our native species and try to get rid of some of the invasive species is a good thing. I don't want to make it too low where, people are incentivized, hey, we'll take down a forest, no problem, we'll pay it. I like the higher fees. I would like to stick with that. I think we have already lost so much green space in our town. I'd really like to preserve as much as it can. And this will make each developer, as they're assessing their properties, really think about how can I incorporate trees into my plan, is my opinion.
All right.
Would you mind if I just commented on a couple of things that have been said? With response to Councilwoman Feldman's comment, I understand your concern that if the price is low enough, the incentive will be to just clear cut, but it's part of subdivision and site plan approval, so it's before the planning board, and in order to even be eligible for the tree bank fund, you have to demonstrate that you can't save or replace the trees. So it's not just an either or. It's like, if you can demonstrate because of site constraints, it is impracticable or impossible to fully meet this mitigation requirement on site, then you can pay into the tree bank fund. So I understand your concern, and I'm not saying that it's not something to certainly keep in mind, but there are other protections in place to make sure it doesn't come to that. And then with response to what the supervisor had mentioned about the different ways of calculating the fee, and you were mentioning that in Wellesley, they did it based upon the tree size that was being removed. I just wanted to go over the actual language and the regulations, because I think based upon my reading, and we can certainly look into this further and maybe get the planner David Stallman to weigh in, it says, in connection with all subdivision and site plan applications, the project shall meet the minimum requirement of the replacement of 50% of the total aggregate diameter of trees proposed for removal with new trees in accordance with a plan for tree replacement. So what they're looking at is the aggregate diameter of everything that's being replaced, and or at least this is the way it was contemplated and adopted. So I would think that it would be more appropriate and consistent with what is in the code to do a per caliper, but it's certainly something that can be looked into more because, as you said, this is very preliminary.
Other council members?
I would just agree with Councilmember Feldman. I think the higher the fees, the better. Sounds like a great idea.
$165, nobody's balking at that. Everybody thinks that that's not unreasonable for lot subdivision, $35,000. Basically 2 lots to be developed. So
I thought you said 2 lots.
it's a 4-lot development. It's a 4-lot subdivision, but I'm guessing that because there's already houses on 2 of them down on the other. I'm just saying. I just want to make sure.
I'd rather err on the side of the trees.
That's the
Farmington Road?
Santucci Hammer property, I believe.
Oh.
Well, there are
That's-
approvals
there's a
that
couple
are
of
in the works.
Those that are in the works, yeah.
And
That's
the
why.
planning board and the developers need guidance from the board as to what their requirements are going to be as conditions of any approvals the planning board may be inclined to grant. And it will be a case by case and specific
Are we
scenario.
late?
Excuse me?
Are we late?
Are we late? We might be a little bit. The somehow the email from our planner never showed up. To be honest, we don't know what happened to it. This was a memo from May 10th that we never received. I don't know why, but our for whatever reason, let's get into it now.
Have a problem with him.
I think it's just-
All about it before.
Well, we have a law.
We have a law.
We
We have
just
the
don't have the
law.
fees. We don't have the fund.
The board just has to adopt
We
a
have the law.
resolution to set the fee.
Right, we're basically setting the fee. How are we gonna just determine what that's
Okay.
where we're up to right now. We have the law's already in place since 2017. So 165 doesn't sound bad per caliper inch. You guys are liking that? All right.
So are we then adding this to the fee schedule?
be
And
adding
if
this to the
so,
fee
are we
schedule.
prepared to do that at next week's meeting?
It sounds to me like we would be. I can take a one more look at. I'll send around to the board and we can have a discussion as part of the resolution. I guess if there's anything that comes up from the tree inventory consultant, but if nothing else, or if we don't hear anything additional from the EAC or anybody else, I'm gonna adopt this as the fantastic. All right, so next up is the solar pilot. We had discussed this topic a few months back when we learned that New York State was offering, when we adopted our solar law, we found out that the other advice that NYSERDA was giving was that New York State offers these tax breaks on commercial solar farms to incentivize solar developments. And as a municipality, we have the discretion, if we do not opt out of the incentive, of the state incentive, to develop a payment in lieu of taxes or pilot program for these properties so that the property owner can still make a contribution to the community, but not be saddled with a full tax assessment. So we've been working with Council Tom Donna as well as our town assessor Fernando Gonzalez, who's here this evening, to discuss what is the most appropriate way to assess a pilot so that we can be predictable and have some kind of a formula. We understand that this is helpful for solar developers, and we do know that there are a few that are interested in property in the town. Specifically, we actually thought we were going to be hearing from one of them, but they postponed their meeting to talk to us about their input, what they think, whatever comments they
So
might
this
have.
is lowering the taxes on the properties that have solar?
It's actually not lowering it. The New York State has already incentivized them. We can opt out of that completely and say we're going to tax you full up, but if we do that, we'll never see a solar developer in the town of Ossining. If we remain with what is it, state law for
RPTL 487.
Real property tax law 487, then that means that they get the incentive of not having to pay property taxes, but
On the additional value of the property caused by the solar installation.
Okay,
But-
on the additional value of the solar
Right.
installation.
But I mean, if it's just solar, right? Just solar, then that's all. That's basically the value of the entire property. But if it's an addition, which it could be,
Right.
an existing property, and they're going to be gaining some benefit from selling off the energy, then that's the additional value. So what NYSERDA had come up with a chart. We'd spoken with NYSERDA about what would be most appropriate in Westchester County, and they had advised that basically the average they believed was to assess $9,000 per megawatt of energy produced,
And that's-
solar energy produced.
Per year?
That's for the total tax.
That's the total
The
tax,
total
right?
tax,
And that
and
can
then
then
the
gets
town-
divvied up
Right.
by,
The
town,
different taxing
village, school district, the
jurisdictions.
various taxing jurisdictions, not including special districts, because special districts come outside of this.
All right, do you have one of those papers for me?
And the town can only opt in for the town.
Yeah, I don't have.
You can't opt in for, so like the supervisor was saying, the default is that state law has created this exemption on these properties. And then you have the option of opting out. If you don't opt out, then you can create a pilot for a period of 15 years from when the exemption would have gone into effect, as long as the pilot doesn't exceed what the tax burden would have been if you had opted out. But it requires each taxing jurisdiction to enter into it individually. So the town board can only adopt legislation for the town and not, depending upon where the property is located, the appropriate village, if that's the case, or school district. But it's certainly something that if the town board is considering adopting, you may want to reach out to those other jurisdictions and make them aware of what you're doing, because in all likelihood, they would want to be a part of it as well.
So benefit to us is,
The benefit is
Will attract
to
more
us
solar?
is yes, basically adopting a pilot establishes a formula and predictability for solar developers. So they come here, they know what they're getting into. They also know if they're paying something over the course of the 15 years when this incentive is in place, that when they go into year 16, that it's not going to be, and it wouldn't be necessarily a huge,
There's also an escalator.
right. And there's a 3% escalator recommended, and that
Yeah,
was also recommended.
these
by
were numbers
NYSERDA.
that we had talked to NYSERDA about, and that they had recommended as being reasonable and not too likely to deter developers while still obviously benefiting the town.
I haven't had a chance to read it through it all the way, so.
Okay, we really wanted to just get this out there because we know that there are some developers, again, kind of looming, and we want to make sure that we get this on the map for that we can open up a public hearing for further discussion. And we have our assessor, Fernando Gonzalez, here. So, good evening, Mr. Gonzalez.
Good evening, and thank you for having me. I just wanted to put a few things in perspective when I was doing some research to try to educate myself about this. But just for your information, to build one to build a solar farm that would produce 1 kilowatt.
Megawatt?
I'm sorry, 1 megawatt of energy, it would cost approximately $1 million to install. Now, 1 megawatt of energy can power approximately 750 homes at once. It is a very costly project, and based on the information that NYSERDA provided, which is also based on the utility company rates. So therefore, when you're in a neighborhood where the utility company's rates are high, then the project would be more viable. The proposed $9,000 per kilowatt is in the middle of the proposed NYSERDA proposed rates per kilowatt hour in the Con Edison territory. It goes as low as 3,700 and as high as 18,400. So the proposed 9,000 per kilowatt hours is right there in the middle. The importance of a solar pilot is that it provides certainty to the developer as far as the taxes. And that is very necessary, just as any other development, to get financing. Of course, we're all for solar power, trying to get away from fossil fuels. But these projects that are being built throughout the states are done with a pilot in place. Even in rural areas where there's lots of land, it requires a pilot. While there is lots of land and the cost to rent or lease the land would be less in rural areas, the rates are much less. The average rate per nationwide is about 13.7 cents, and Con Edison is about 20.3, a little bit less than
Kilowatt.
double. So I just wanted to put that into perspective. The proposed pilot law will most likely send a message to developers that the town of Washington is open to these solar facilities, and it would be the first step. I'm sure that other negotiation will ensue that would include the other taxing jurisdictions, such as the school district.
Do we know how big 1 megawatt facility acres?
1 megawatt facility would require 2 acres on average.
Now, there are companies that are interested in developing on already developed property. And some of them are looking to do carports or other
Okay, I like those.
already, cleared land. So again, that's something that the town board has basically said in our solar code that we're in favor of. And
Yeah, I'm just trying to get an idea of the size per taxation for a pilot.
got it. Okay, so are there any other questions from the town board? Are there any other issues or that you would like us to look into as we look to open up a public hearing on the draft solar energy system pilot law?
You think of any cons to adopting something like this? So the pros are that we're getting people to look at us as a place where they can do development, but can you think of any cons? I didn't really see any, but I'm just wondering.
I don't see any cons since an investment such as this would require further negotiations with the developer, especially since there's going to be other taxing jurisdiction, primarily the school district. I think there's more benefits to in Westchester County, particularly, where I think the only other community is Mount Kisco, right?
Yeah, they have 2 big projects going on. Do we know where they are in the pilot? The numbers?
They didn't establish solar pilot law. They did a solar pilot.
Solar pilot only specific to Mount Kisco.
Correct.
And I guess were not involved in the negotiation with the school district. In other words, each taxing jurisdiction, it's
Those kind of,
on their own.
right.
I think developers would prefer to be able to combine or deal with all the negotiations on a particular project at once, so that everybody knows what they're getting or what the benefit is going to be. In other counties, the county takes the lead and the IDA provides the study that Sullivan County, I think it was, we looked at.
Right.
Sullivan County did put together a program as a guide to all the other municipalities. But I think in our case, it's good to send the message to developers that we are willing to consider.
Do you remember what the Mount Kisco rate was? I don't remember.
It was around, I have it here, $3,000,
3,600?
3,600.
And that was just for
$3,330
town,
with 2% increments. Yes.
right? And that doesn't include school.
No.
It was
It's
just the
town village. Well, town village.
Yes.
So again, this was this
So their
this
school gets
this
nothing?
number, this $9,000 number came from recommendations from NYSERDA looking specifically at Con Ed territory, looking at Westchester.
Okay, just, so Mount Kisco schools get nothing?
That wasn't negotiated by the town and village.
Okay.
That's not the case for this. This
Yeah,
would-
that's not what
Right,
I
that's
wanted.
not what we're looking to do. We're looking to establish a rate that would then be divvied up by by
Oh,
the
okay.
percentage that each of us get. And just for,
Each municipality, each taxing jurisdiction would have to adopt their own local law or resolution for the school district. That's how state law is worded. So,
So,
um,
I'm sorry, so we would have to adopt the $9,000 and each of us would agree to apportion that $9,000?
it would
If
be
we all-
apportioned as per our portion,
based
our
upon
basic
how the taxes are generally
apportioned.
So if everybody adopted it, then the 9,000 would be for everybody, not 9,000 each.
correct. It's 9,000 multiplied by
megawatt.
whatever percent per megawatt for whatever the percentage of the entire pie of
And then
taxes that are
split
paid.
Exactly.
By percentage wise for the taxing jurisdiction.
Correct.
Exactly.
So ideally, while contemplating this and going through the public hearing process, we reach out to the other municipalities and see if we can all be on the same page so that going forward, there is that consistency that the assessor was talking about.
So any further comments? No? We'll call for public hearing at the next.
I did, NYSERDA does have a template of a local law that I took a look at and tried to incorporate some town-specific information into. And I received comments from the supervisor and the assessor, so I'll try to incorporate those and then we can circulate it to the board as a whole.
Fantastic. So with that, thank you everybody for joining us tonight. May I have a motion to adjourn into executive session for matters of personnel and advice of counsel?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, I look forward to seeing everyone next Tuesday, July 16th, right here at the courthouse. That's right. We're not going to be at the municipal building. We're going to be here at the courthouse, 8688 Spring Street, where we will discuss the proposed River Knoll development on Croton Dam Road. As a reminder, in addition to the discussion that we will have, the town board will have, we are going to allow public comment on our comments. And we know we have a lot of interest in the topic, and this is going to be an opportunity for people to talk to us about that. Okay, good night, everyone, and we will see you right here at the courthouse next week, July 16th.